Chud327 here in the shop, and I've got a new delivery. I ordered this from YESWELDER, and about 2 days later, it's in my mailbox. Well, I've got a delivery box. It was in there in about 2 days. I'm super impressed how fast it got here. If we look at the box, UPS delivery, there's one little dent there, one little dent there. That's minor compared to sometimes you're gonna get a box and it's all crushed in. This one looks good on all four corners except for those two little dents. I think it should be fine on the inside. I used the plasma cutter probably about 10, 15 years ago. Loved the thing. Blew me away how easy it was to cut metal, and I've been wanting one ever since, but the prices are so expensive. Then my last S10 that I sold, Charles, the next day I went and looked at my next S10. I didn't buy it, but I went and looked at one, and this guy had a YESWELDER. His was a cut 55 DS Pro, I think it was. This is a 65, so it should cut bigger metal. Anyway, he wouldn't quit talking about it. He let me use his. It was a blast. When you go online and look at the price of these, they're not that bad. I think this one was like $319, but if you look around a holiday, they might do 20% off, 25% off. So if you want one, I mean, watch the video, see if you're impressed with how it cuts. We're gonna do an unboxing, a testing, and then if you think you want one, check them out around a holiday. Anyway, let's do an unboxing, see what's inside, get it plugged in. And I am a complete novice. Like I said, about 10 years ago, I used one. I was impressed with it, but I don't have any experience with one. Let's see how user-friendly it is for a new beginner. New beginner? For a beginner. And I think I'll get a piece of plywood to put on here to make a better table. You know, protect the wagon. Stand by. So I've got this sheet of plywood. Every time I paint something, it gets a new color on it. It feels like it's artwork. I should hang it on the wall one day. Anyway, I don't think a plasma unboxing and a little bit of usage will hurt my artwork. Let's get this thing open. Okay, inside the box, everything's tightly compacted in there. 220. And this is super light. I think the whole box was 25 pounds or less. Anyway, this, I believe I read online, it's about 17 pounds. Can you pick it up with one pinky? Yes, you can. Depends on your pinky, but yes, you can. And then one other box inside this box. And that's all there is to it. Ground clamp, power adapter, hose, 10 foot, operator's manual, plasma torch. And this, I'm thinking we will not use this. I'm just gonna get the chuck, put it right on there, plug the hose right into it. Here's our manual. Our adapter if you want to use it for 110. I like to say you're out in the woods, you got a generator, take this, you can cut the stuff in the woods. Our ground wire. I hear that's actually the positive, but we're gonna call it the ground wire. And here's our torch. So for the torch, there are 3 wires. Looks like it's a foolproof. Oh. This is your guide. Keep the right spacing. It pops right on. They threw in this little wrench. I don't know what to use it for yet. We'll figure it out. Other than you having your own air compressor with an air hose, this is all there is to it. So I've got a 220 plug pretty close. We'll throw this into the box. Save that for later. And then for the torch, it plugs in, the little ring screws on. We're halfway there already. This, there's 2 washers. We'll do a sandwich. And then this one just screws on. What has that been, 5 minutes? And we're almost ready to cut. Don't lose your wrench. So a close up of how simple it is. Piece of cake. I'm gonna put the wrench in the box for now until we figure out what it goes to. And we gotta get some air compressor going and find some metal to cut. I did skip one step on this setup. On the back, the regulator's already on, but it's got this where you plug their clear hose into it. I just want to plug my air hose, just chuck it right on in. So I've got this. We've got a 17 millimeter. And of course I couldn't find any Teflon, so if you hear any hissing sounds, now I'll plug my hose in. I think I'm gonna turn the wagon around to make this closer to my plug. Now all we have to do is plug our hose in here. I think before we do that, I'm gonna spin the whole wagon around, and that'll get my cord closer to the plug. We'll be ready to start cutting. Step one, and way back behind these drill presses, I should probably move the drill presses and make this my plasma cutting area. So just looked at every page in the owner's manual. The best way to learn it is to turn it on and start cutting. Anyway, I'm in a well-ventilated area. I've got fire extinguishers laying around. I've got a water hose. I've got the fan on for, ventilation. Plus, this is basically July in Florida. It's supposed to be about 100 degrees today. Anyway, I've got it plugged in. I gotta get the air hose hooked up, turn it on. We'll be ready to start cutting. Here on the other end, I've got this old toolbox and this stool. Put that right about there, put the stool right about here. And I'm gonna put some water in this tray so as we cut, the sparks can go right into the water. And online, there's many generic charts you can screenshot. This will be your 110 section, your 220 volt, mild steel, stainless steel, aluminum. Let's start with some mild steel. I'm gonna use this to set up our plasma cutter. And I did receive an email from YESWELDER. It's saying a general rule for 110, 45 to 60 PSI, for 220, anywhere from 60 to 90 PSI. The thicker the metal, the higher the PSI. We're gonna start with that and we'll do some experiment and get it dialed in. And there's a switch on the back. E5, according to the book, means no air pressure. That's this. We've got it on 220 volts. It automatically knows what voltage it is. And this would be our amps. If we want to cut it 55, if we want to cut it 27, all the way down to 20 amps. So let's get our air hose plugged in. So we're at 57 PSI. There's 50. 50 at 35. Let's see what we're gonna cut first. All right, my shield is set on 5. On the table, we've got a mower blade. If you've ever tried to use a mower blade, they are super tough steel. Try one day to drill a hole in one. Anyway, should be perfect to start with. It's good thin metal. And for the thickness, it is about, it's right at 5/32. So I've got the cutter on. Let's do about, we'll do 25 amps, and I've got it on 49 PSI. Gloves on. Get my gloves on. I've got water in the tray. This will just be a freehand. We've got our guide on. And these, you do not have to touch the metal for the arc to pop out. And you want to make sure you start on the edge. Your tip lasts longer if you start on the edge. Pretty good for a first cut. You don't want to go too fast, you don't want to go too slow. Let's try it one more time. We'll freehand it. I'm gonna do like a V shape. help. Not bad for a second cut. See that one little spot right there? It's still pretty good. We'll get better. And as far as that, the dross, it cleans off pretty easy. Let's get a straight edge and try to cut a straight line. It's right under a 1/4 inch. Let's pretend we need a big washer, so we're gonna cut a washer off this end. We'll freehand this one. We'll get a straight edge on the next one. Did you say that last time? I had a little jump right there at the very end. Let's try it one more time. There's the first one. So there is the first cut. Lots of dross. There's the second cut. Pretty cool. Let's do a dross check. How hard is it to remove the dross? Pops right off. That's like the slag when you're welding. That's kind of the fun part to me on the welding. Popping the slag off. Yeah, I can live with that. So the guinea pig now, I've got this piece of steel. This is 1/2 inch wrench. That's 1/2 inch steel. I've got a straight edge. The ground's already hooked up. Let's go adjust our cutter. So here on the cutter, let's go a whole bunch of amps. 65 is the maximum. I want to try 60. And then for the air, let's go, what if we did 75? There, 75 is hard to get. There's 75, 60. All right, 1/2 inch steel, 60 amps, 75 PSI. So I've got the breaker back on, so much for post-flow cool down. We'll change it from 60, and we'll go to 45. Anyway, then we can compare, that was 65 halfway through, and we'll do 45 the rest of the way, if it cuts it. So this will be 45 amps, 75 PSI, coming from the other direction. Try to meet in the middle. True. 65, 45. It's about the same. 65 is a little bit prettier. Both sides are good looking though. We've got to find some thicker metal. Let's do a dross check. This will be the 65, that'll be the 45. 45 popped off. 65 popped off. I think I like the 65 better, but they're both easy to pop off. And with that, it's break time. Gotta get some lunch. So I've got a 1/4 inch wrench. This is 1/4 inch steel. The ground is hooked up. I've got a straight edge. I put a soapstone mark and I'm gonna try to cut right inside of that. I'm on 40 PSI. No, I'm on 60 PSI and 40 amps. So much better with the ground right. So I've got this diamond plate, not terribly thick, not terribly thin. Anyway, this chart says everything on 220 volts aluminum wise, from thin to thick, everything's gonna be 60 PSI at 50 amps. That sounds like a lot, but we'll go with it. I might do a test cut on the corner first and then go for the real thing. So the plan is test cut here, then cut there, and it's gonna be fun going over all those little diamonds. Right about there. And watch this. So this is the settings we use for the aluminum. If you want to make it more, twist the knob. If you want to make it less. I like that it has this built-in filter air pressure regulator. It's already built in, you don't have to put it on. And then to turn it off, all there is to it. I love the little guy. So on the chop block now, we've got some 16 gauge stainless steel. It's pretty thick. I don't know if it's thick enough for a knife blade, but we're going to attempt a 45, a straight, a 45, and a straight. And this is shout out to Metal Supermarket. I stopped by there the other day, talked to Steve, he's the owner, and I said, I'm getting a plasma cutter, I'm gonna make a video. Do you want a shout out? So I just came into Metal Supermarkets. The way it works, there's a scale here, you weigh what you get, and $1.49 for some steel, galvanized $1.99, cold drawn steel $2.49, aluminum $3.49, and stainless is $4.99. So you put it on there. They've got drops, a whole section of drops here, drops there. If you want the new stuff, that's all back there. And this is all drops. We've got a stainless and aluminum pile here, a steel pile there, some expanded metal, some diamond plate. I've got some samples. We're gonna go home and cut these up, see how the plasma cutter does. And shout out to Metal Supermarkets for donating these pieces. I just swung by Metal Supermarkets in Jacksonville. They gave me some stuff to try out the plasma cutter with. This is a stainless steel sample. He also gave me this steel diamond plate, this aluminum diamond plate, this really thin stainless, this heavy duty galvanized sheet, and this piece of stainless on the table right now. That's all shout out to Metal Supermarket, Steve. This is going to be 16 gauge stainless steel. We're going to try to do something a little different. 45 a straight, a 45 and another straight. Okay, I'm at 50 amps, 55 PSI. And you always want to drag your cuts. I think this time I'm going to try freehand. Then we'll use the straight edge and freehand just to compare the difference. So what's weird, where the guide straight edge was, there's less dross. I must have been going faster, and here, I guess when you go slower, it welds back on. I'm gonna go out for some fresh air. I don't trust that stainless. So here's a piece of galvanized. I don't trust galvanized either. I'm gonna cut it and run. It's about the same thickness as the stainless. It's probably marked, but I don't see it right now. Let's do a quick cut and get out of here. That is perfect. Sorry. That is perfect. All right, gotta run. So all the cuts so far today have been practiced for this moment. I've got this blade. This is a concrete cutting blade. I've had it probably 15 years waiting for this moment. Trying to think of an easy way to cut it, and plasma cutter is an easy way to cut it. It used to hang under the bench. It would spin. It was a carousel with jars full of nuts, bolts, washers. It never got finished. It never got used. Anyway, I just took it down, and I'm going to sketch out probably a straight line right across here. Maybe some kind of angle that comes up, and then the handle would be straight. Let me get something traced on there. We'll clamp on some straight edges, and in just a few minutes, we'll have a dull machete. So this is what I have so far. Handle on this side, and we'll sharpen this edge and that edge. That'll be our machete. This is 50 amps, 57 PSI. Come on. For this test, we're at 60 amps, 60 PSI. Let's see how that does. About time for some new gloves. It's about time to refill the water tray. Here's a sneak peek of the Zombie Slayer machete. Full build and testing is on my channel. Shout out to YESWELDER. They made this build possible. Also came with optional zombie gut hook. Okay, probably our last cut of the day. On the operating table today, we got a railroad spike. It is 5/8 of an inch thick. That's the thickest thing we've cut so far. This is 5/8. Fits right on. Anyway, I've got it on 65 amps. That's wide open. And I've got it on 65 PSI. Let's see what happens. We gotta find something thicker, I guess. Not tonight. We gotta find something thicker. Right through it. Not too bad. That is impressive. So the front end has been completely cut out. So when I made this cut this morning right across there, this is the piece that fell off. I had to turn it to 45 amps. It was a good clean cut with very little dross. We can add this to my collection. This is over the last month or so, cutting and practicing and testing. This, one of my first cuts without the ground, with the ground. That was a valuable lesson. This is 1/2 inch, 65 amps versus 45 amps. Today's stuff. It loves aluminum, it loves stainless. Today's stuff. Steel diamond plate. Let's see, my thickest thing so far will be this railroad stake, 5/8. Not a problem at all. If you plan to get one, I'm gonna recommend YESWELDER. Cut 65 DS, love it. Also get you a good respirator, a good hood, and make fun of my gloves. The tip of my finger sometimes sticks through. I'm gonna try to get a new pair tomorrow. And if you wanna leave me a comment, what should I cut? What should I build next? Here's a sneak peek of my biggest mower build yet. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss how it turns out. I also use that plasma to build the lift on the back. This is trying to think of something thicker than the railroad stake. This is a 1-inch crankshaft. There is a hole in the middle, there's a keyway. We're gonna try to work around those. And I've got it set on 65 amps, 75 PSI. Let's just see what happens. Let's cut it off closer, maybe we'll get it away from that bolt hole. So there was one piece of dross that held it together. That's a 1-inch cut. I'm impressed. So I just finished cutting through the crankshaft and I heard a hissing noise. The readout said E5. That means you've got no air pressure. Well, I know I have air pressure, plus I hear it hissing. I popped the cover off and this little clear hose had pulled off. Too much air pressure. 75 must be too much air pressure. So I pushed it back on. I'm gonna get a little zip tie, put it back on there. We should be good to go. I want to get it really tight, but I'm going to be real gentle not to break any of those solder welds. About like that. Okay, don't try this at home. I've got it plugged in. I've got the air hose back on. I've already turned down the pressure. We're looking for anything but E5 here. I'm going to flip it on. Let's see what happens. Oh, so 57, we're back in business. I've got the zip tie on. I might go ahead and lower it a little bit more. 55 sounds good. I've got an axle to cut off the lawnmower. I'm glad it's back up and operational. Turn it back off. I'm gonna unplug it, put the cover back on, go back to cutting. So right here on the operating table, I've got them almost sewed back together. It's 15 screws. And we should be good to go. My next step, I've got a John Deere with a stuck wheel. I need this wheel, but it's rusted on. The transmission's shot. I'm gonna try to cut through that axle. I should have videoed that. It literally took about 5 seconds. It's cut. Let's go in for a close-up. Now, so before I pulled this in the shop, I took a cordless sawzall and I was sawing back here, and I worked on it probably 5 minutes. I was getting nowhere. I pulled it in the shop and it was literally about 5 seconds. I'm all the way through it. Very impressed. So that is the Cut 65DS by YESWELDER. It's been repaired, one zip tie. We're back in business. I still recommend.